ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be with you today. And of course, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't try to tempt you with a brand new Supra.
Toyota is working on a new plan to change the car industry. The trendsetter wants to be a company that goes beyond making money off people by just selling cars. The world-renowned company recently shared some exciting new ideas that will help them do this. While the most recent automobile innovation has been electric cars, Toyota's CEO has taken a big step forward, emerging with a new car that runs on water. The show-stopping vehicle is powered by an engine that neither needs electricity nor gas to operate. Can Toyota really pull this unbelievable innovation off? And is the engine being powered by water the whole truth? Join us as we reveal what Toyota has had up its sleeves and what the media isn't telling you about this technology. At a recent technical briefing held in Japan, Toyota's Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, named Hiroki Nakajima, explained how Toyota intends to use technology to make their new plan happen. This was after the company's former CEO, Akio Toyoda, addressed it. Hiroki Nakajima talked about many different ideas, some of which are still being developed, that will help Toyota achieve its goals. He explained how they plan to make cars in the future and what technologies they will use. This is all part of Toyota's plan to become a mobility company, which means they want to help people have different options to commute. Hiroki wasn't alone when he shared these exciting plans. He was joined by two other important leaders, Takeru Kato and Mitsumasa Yamagata. Takeru is in charge of making electric cars, which are called BEVs. Mitsumasa, on the other hand, will lead the team making hydrogen cars when the factory opens soon. It's no news that China is currently leading the way in making electric vehicles, simply called EVs, and America is trying to catch up using the same technology, but Japan has just made a surprising move by developing a new type of engine that has left experts amazed. What's special about these engines, you might ask? Well, the answer is very simple. They only produce water vapor as exhaust. This basically means they don't harm the environment like traditional engines do. Plus, they're still combustion engines, which is a technology we're familiar with. This means Japan is taking a big step towards leading the future of transportation. Toyota, as a Japanese company, has been working hard on developing technology that uses hydrocarbons in a way that's good for the environment. They've been focusing on fuel cell technology, which is a way to make cars run on hydrogen instead of gasoline. This puts Toyota in a great position to lead the way in making eco-friendly cars. They've already shown off their ideas with a diverse range of patents and cars like the Mirai, which runs on hydrogen. This makes Toyota ahead of the game in making cars that are good for the planet. Toyota is showing how committed they are to improving a special kind of technology that uses hydrogen to make electricity. This technology is called a hydrogen fuel cell system, and it works similarly to the ammonia engine. The big advantage of this technology is that it doesn't harm the environment like traditional engines do. Cars that use this technology, called hydrogen fuel cell electric cars or FCEVs, don't produce any harmful emissions of greenhouse gases. The only thing that comes out of the tailpipe is water vapor, which is totally harmless. This makes them a very important solution to the problems of air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. The way Toyota's hydrogen fuel cell products work is by using a chemical reaction between the hydrogen stored in the vehicle and the oxygen in the air around us. This reaction produces electricity, which powers the car. It's a very clever and efficient way to make cars run without harming the environment. Toyota is at the forefront of developing this technology, and their commitment to it shows how serious they are about making cars that are good for the planet. By using hydrogen fuel cell technology, Toyota is helping to reduce air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. The motor has a special part called an electrolyzer. This part takes in water and uses a process called electrolysis to split the water molecules into two different things, hydrogen and oxygen. Water is made up of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom, stuck together specially. The electrolyzer uses a special kind of energy called electricity to break these atoms apart. The electricity is sent through two special pieces of metal called electrodes. These electrodes are put into the water, and when the electricity flows through them, it makes the water molecules start to break apart. The hydrogen atoms are attracted to one of the electrodes, and the oxygen atoms are attracted to the other electrode. This means that the hydrogen and oxygen are separated from each other. The electrode that the hydrogen is attracted to is called the negative electrode, or the cathode. The electrode that the oxygen is attracted to is called the positive electrode, or the anode. When the electricity flows through the electrodes, it makes the hydrogen atoms move to the cathode and the oxygen atoms move to the anode. This process is very efficient and safe. It doesn't need a lot of energy to make it happen, and it doesn't produce any harmful byproducts. The only thing that comes out of the electrolyzer is hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen can then be used as fuel for the motor. One of the best things about this process is that it doesn't need a big heavy tank to store the hydrogen. The electrolyzer can make the hydrogen as it's needed, so there's no need to store it ahead of time. This makes the motor much lighter and more efficient. The motor needs some special changes to work with hydrogen instead of gasoline or diesel fuel. One of the main changes is to the fuel injectors. These are the parts that spray fuel into the engine so it can burn and make the motor move. Because hydrogen is a different kind of fuel, the fuel injectors need to be adapted to spray it into the engine in the right way. That's not all. Some other parts of the motor also need to be changed to work with hydrogen. For example, the engine block and cylinder head need to be made stronger to handle the high pressure of the hydrogen fuel. The motor also needs special valves and spark plugs to help it run efficiently and safely. But even with these changes, the motor offers some really impressive environmental benefits. One of the most important is that it produces almost zero emissions. This means that it doesn't put harmful pollutants into the air like traditional motors do. It doesn't produce any carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, or particulate matter, which are all harmful to human health and the environment. The motor is also more practical and economical than traditional motors. One of the main reasons is that it only needs water to refuel. This means that you don't need to go to the gas station to fill up with gasoline or diesel fuel. Instead, you can just fill up with water, which is much cheaper and more abundant. This also reduces the need for extracting petroleum, which is a harmful and polluting process. By reducing the need for petroleum, the motor also limits the use of fossil fuels to specific sectors like airplanes and heavy industry. This is important because fossil fuels are a major source of greenhouse gas emissions, which contribute to climate change. By reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, we can help slow down climate change and create a more sustainable future. If many people start using this motor, it could lead to a reduction in the need to extract rare metals from the earth by a lot. Rare metals are used in a lot of technologies, including electronics and renewable energy systems. But extracting them from the earth can be very harmful to the environment. It can pollute the soil, water, and air, and even hurt the people living nearby. The process of extracting rare metals is often dangerous and destructive. It involves digging deep into the earth, which can cause landslides and other accidents. The chemicals used in the extraction process can also leak into the environment and cause harm. By reducing the need for rare metal extraction, the motor can help minimize these harmful effects. Toyota's water motor is also better than other types of motors that use hydrogen, like hydrogen fuel cell vehicles or FCVs. One of the main reasons is that storing water is much easier and cheaper than storing hydrogen. Hydrogen is a gas, so it needs to be stored in special tanks that can withstand high pressure. These tanks are heavy, expensive, and can even leak, which can be dangerous. Water, on the other hand, is a liquid, so it's much easier to store. It doesn't need special tanks or high pressure, so it's much safer and more practical. This means that the motor can be used in many different situations, from small cars to big trucks, and even in power plants. Its simplicity and safety make it a much more viable option than other types of motors. There's more to the technology of this motor than just its ability. It even extends to being competitive. The motor's superiority over other motors also means that it can help reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and minimize harmful emissions. By using water as fuel, it doesn't produce any harmful pollutants or greenhouse gases, which contribute to climate change. This makes it a much more sustainable option for transportation and energy generation. The motor is a big step forward in technology and environmental sustainability. It shows that we can make machines that are not only more efficient and powerful, but also better for the planet. This motor is special because it uses water as fuel, which means it doesn't produce harmful pollutants or greenhouse gases like traditional motors do. This innovation is important not just because of its technological advancements, but also because it shows that we can prioritize environmental concerns without sacrificing performance. This motor is a great example of how we can use science and engineering to create solutions that benefit both people and the planet. The motor's sustainable design makes it a game changer for the environment. By using water as fuel, it reduces our reliance on fossil fuels and minimizes harmful emissions. This means that we can have transportation and energy generation without contributing to climate change or air pollution. It's a huge step towards creating a more sustainable future for everyone. The motor's technological advancements also make it more efficient and practical. It's simpler in design and requires less maintenance than traditional motors. This means that it can be used in many different situations, from small cars to big trucks, and even in power plants. Its versatility and sustainability make it a much better option than traditional motors. The innovation behind this motor is a great example of how technology and environmental concerns can come together to create something amazing. It shows that we don't have to choose between progress and sustainability. We can have both. The motor has the potential to be a game changer for the automotive industry. It could be the push the industry needs to reinvent itself and move towards a more sustainable future. For a long time, the industry has been focused on making cars that are faster, stronger, and more luxurious, but not necessarily more environmentally friendly. With the water motor, Toyota is showing that it's possible to make cars that are both high performance and eco-friendly. Before Toyota's strides to build cars that only run on water, it turns out it wasn't the first to achieve this feat. Genapac's controversial water-fueled car. In 2008, Japanese company Genapac suddenly announced they had created a car that could run on water instead of gasoline or diesel fuel. This was a huge deal because it could have meant a cheaper and more environmentally friendly way to power cars. The company claimed to have developed a special system that could extract energy from water, which was then used to power the car. They called it a water-fueled car. The system used a special generator to split the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen, and then use the hydrogen as fuel. But experts took a closer look and realized that the system wasn't quite what it seemed. They thought that the car was actually using a special material called metal hydride to generate energy, not just water. This meant that the car wasn't truly running on water alone. Some people were skeptical about Genapac's claims, and the company never released any scientific evidence to support their claims. There was a lot of negativity from scientists and the company's competitors, and they had some convincing points. For example, some scientists reminded people that it's impossible to get energy from water alone based on what we know about physics. They explained that water is a very stable substance. It's one of the basic elements, and its molecules are held together with strong bonds. This means that it takes energy to break these bonds and turn water into its separate parts, hydrogen and oxygen. Think of it like trying to break a strong stick. You need to use force to snap it in two. These scientists also pointed out that water is the most stable form of hydrogen and oxygen, so you can't get energy by turning water into something else. The energy is already tied up in the water molecules, and you need to add more energy to break them apart. So unfortunately, it's not possible to extract energy from water alone, according to the rules of physics. Many ideas for cars that run on water use a process called electrolysis to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Then they combine these elements again to release energy, but there's a problem with this approach. The first law of thermodynamics says that the energy needed to split the water molecules will always be the same as the energy released when they're combined again. The second law of thermodynamics makes things even worse for Genapac. It says that when you convert energy from one form to another, some of the energy will always be wasted. This means that even if you manage to split the water molecules and recombine them, the amount of useful energy you'll get out of the system will always be less than the energy you put into it. Some critics brought up the controversial story of Stanley Meyer, who made headlines in 1980 with his extraordinary claim of building a dune buggy that could run on water. But Meyer's explanations of how his invention worked were inconsistent and raised more questions than answers. Sometimes, he said he had replaced the spark plugs with a water splitter, while other times, he described a fuel cell that could split water into hydrogen and oxygen. He claimed that this fuel cell used electrical resonance to split the water, which was then burned in the engine to produce energy. This sounds like a revolutionary idea, but unfortunately, it was never backed up by solid evidence. Meyer's claims were never verified by independent experts, and his story ultimately ended in disgrace. In 1996, he was found guilty of gross and egregious fraud in an Ohio court, which means his claims were deemed false and misleading. The critics said Genepax was doing the same thing Stanley Meyer did: deceit. Stanley Meyer wasn't the only one who had claimed to have made cars that ran on water before Toyota. A company called Hydrogen Technology Applications developed a special device in 2002 that could split water into hydrogen and oxygen gases, which they called a Quigen. Initially, they intended to use this technology as a safer alternative to oxyacetylene welding, but they soon made bold claims that their device could power a car using only water. They came up with some complex theories to explain how it worked, including something called magnagases and magnacules, but these ideas weren't supported by scientific evidence. The company's founder, Dennis Klein, even claimed that they were in talks with a major car manufacturer and the US government to use their technology in Hummers. This would have meant a huge shift in how cars are powered, and it's no wonder that people were both excited and skeptical. But as time went on, it became clear that the claims being made were most likely exaggerated. It turned out that those claims were overstated. The company is no longer saying that their device can run a car solely on water. Instead, they're now marketing it as a way to make cars more fuel efficient by using aquogen production as a technique to enhance hydrogen fuel. This means it's not a car that runs on water, but rather a way to make cars use less gas. That same 2002, a company called Genesis World Energy made a big announcement. They said they had developed a device that could extract energy from water by splitting it into hydrogen and oxygen and then combining them again. This sounded like a revolutionary idea, and investors were eager to get on board. The company claimed that their device was ready for the market, and they started collecting money from investors. But something fishy was going on. Even with all the hype, none of the devices ever actually made it to market. It seemed like the company was more interested in taking people's money than in actually developing a working product. The following year, Genesis World Energy made another unbelievable claim. They said they had adapted their technology to power cars. This was supposed to be the future of energy, but it was all just a scam. The company's owner, Patrick Kelly, was eventually caught and brought to justice. In 2006, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for theft and ordered to pay back $400,000 to the investors he had swindled. This made people more convinced that his claims to have made such a water-powerful device was a sham. In 2008, the same year that Genepax made its surprising announcement, a man named Tushara Priyamale Dhirisinghe in Sri Lanka claimed to have driven a car powered by water for 190 miles using just 3 liters or 5.3 imperial pints of water. He said that the car used a special technology that split water into hydrogen and oxygen, which were then burned in the engine to produce energy. This sounded like an amazing breakthrough, and the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Ratnasiri Wickramanayake, was so impressed that he offered his full support to help Tushara bring this technology to the market. He thought Tushara was onto something, but things didn't quite add up. A few months later, Tushara was arrested on suspicion of fraud. It seemed that his claims about the water-powered car were exaggerated, and he was actually scamming investors. People weren't surprised. They were already familiar with inventory after inventory claiming to have built water-powered cars that turned out to be a scam. You'd think the lies ended in 2008, but there have been more recent claims too. Recent water-powered invention scams. 2 years ago, Arianto Misal, an inventor from Indonesia, claimed to have created a device called Nakuba that could transform water into hydrogen fuel, which could then be used to power motorcycles. What's even more astonishing is that he claimed this device could travel an incredible 500 kilometers on just 1 liter of water. This breakthrough could finally be the one to change the way people thought about transportation and energy after being lied to countless times. Just a few months later in July, Arianto made another bold statement. He claimed that some of the biggest names in the automotive industry, Lamborghini, Ducati, and Ferrari, were interested in his invention. He also said he was willing to sell his device to foreign companies for a whopping 15 billion rupiahs. At the same time, he expressed his disdain for the Indonesian government and the National Research and Innovation Agency, claiming they had destroyed him. Until today, one knows what led to this rift, but it's obvious that Arianto was determined to forge his own path, even if it meant going against the establishment. Sadly, the scientific community in Indonesia was very skeptical of Arianto's claims. Scientists from the National Research and Innovation Agency have stated that the device is theoretically impossible, meaning it goes against the fundamental laws of physics and chemistry. They also revealed that the Italian automobile manufacturers, Arianto claimed, were interested in Nakuba actually had no interest in the device. Instead, Arianto was invited by their partners, which means that the meeting was likely a courtesy rather than a genuine expression of interest. This raises serious questions about the validity of Arianto's claims and whether Nakuba is truly the revolutionary invention he claims it to be. Although Genepax's idea had potential at the time, the company hasn't been heard from much since then, and no one knows if they're still working on their water-fueled car idea. Toyota is committed to continuing its research and development of hydrogen fuel cell technology. This is because the car industry is rapidly changing, with a growing demand for clean technologies and new electric vehicles from China, such as BYD and Xiaomi. Toyota wants to stay ahead in this changing market by improving and innovating its hydrogen fuel cell technology to meet the growing need for environmentally friendly transportation. It doesn't end there. The company is focusing on expanding its operations in Europe under the name Hydrogen Factory Europe to achieve this goal. Although Toyota has already been mass-producing hydrogen-powered cars like the Mirai, it now wants to explore the use of hydrogen fuel in heavy-duty transportation, such as trucks and buses. This is similar to what another company, Bosch, is doing. Toyota is using its special fuel cell technology in many different areas, like big trucks and buses, trains, boats, and even making electricity. Because they have been successful with this technology, they are now working on making it even better for the next generation. They want to make it last longer, go farther, and be more affordable for people to buy. They also want to make it work as well as the engines in cars today, but without harming the environment. They plan to start selling this new fuel cell system in 2026, and it will be able to travel 20% farther than the ones they have now, and it will cost 30% less. This new technology could be a major breakthrough in the search for alternative fuels that don't harm the environment. Toyota's investment in hydrogen fuel cell technology shows that there is still a lot to explore and discover. It's clear that electric vehicles are not the only option, and that other technologies like hydrogen fuel cells can also help to create a future with better ease of life. Toyota's journey with its new water-powered motor is just beginning. The company has already made significant progress in developing the technology, but there's still much work to be done. Toyota will need to continue to innovate and improve the motor to make it more efficient, powerful, and reliable. But if successful, the water motor could become a flagship technology for Toyota, setting a new standard for the industry. Do you see yourself getting Toyota's water-powered car? And do you think the company can pull it off without any controversy like the others in the past? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next updates.